Hi guys, today we're going to talk about some basic geometric terms, what they look like visually, and how we name them in geometry. It is really important that we know how to name them because when you're presenting something back to me, if you don't name it correctly, I will not know what it is. Your first one is a point. A point is a location with no size or shape. So this could be my point P. To name it, we're just going to use capital letters and name it by what the point is. So this is P. I do not need to say point in front of P because if it's a capital letter, I know it is a point. That's like a rule in geometry. Your next word is line. A line is made up of points with no thickness or width. So what that means is there's just a bunch of different points in here all squished together really close. It goes on forever in both directions, so we put arrows on both sides. To name it, you need to have 2 points. So what they're going to do, there's infinitely many points, but they're going to draw attention to 2 specific points. There may be more, but there's going to be at least 2. What we do is we take those 2 points, they're capital letters because they're points, and we squish them together and then we put a line symbol on top. The order doesn't matter, so I can flip it around and this is the same exact line. It's a line that goes through those 2 points. Now sometimes I do something different. There might be a lowercase cursive letter at the end of the line. That is another optional way to name it. So one single lowercase cursive letter also does the trick. A plane is a flat surface made up of points and extends indefinitely in both directions. So think of your piece of paper, but the piece of paper is never going to stop. There's a lot of points on there, but they're going to show you at least 3 points because to name it, you need 3 points. So a line needs 2, a plane needs 3. Again, points we squish together with their capital letters. Now notice how I left a space. There's no symbol for plane. You don't like draw a rectangle because not every plane is a rectangle. We use our signal word of plane and then squish our capital letters together. Now, there might also be the cursive option. So if they put a capital cursive letter in the corner normally, that's another way. So capital cursive for plane, lowercase cursive for lines. Now the important part is that to name a plane, we need non-collinear points. And I know that you don't know what that is yet, but we will get there. But they must be non-collinear. So just keep track of that word. We'll come back to it. But that is extremely important. Collinear. So here we are. We're talking about what that means. They're points that lie on the same line. So here we have a line. Let's say we have D, E, C, and then we got this like G over here. So if I'm going to be collinear, I'm lying on the same line. So the only ones that lie on the same line right now are D, C, and E. Because if you notice where they are, they're all on the line. And in the definition, or in the word collinear, is the word line. Now, there's something, like we just saw on the plane, called non-collinear. Now, non-collinear, I bet you can guess what that is. Non-collinear points are points that don't lie on the same line. And it only takes one bad apple to ruin the bunch. So basically what I need to do in my list is I need to include this guy that's not on the line at all. And I can include it in any combination. So I could do D, C, and G, or I could do D, E, and G, or I could list them all, D, C, E, and finally G. There's more combinations that you can come up with, but all you need to do is as long as there's one point that doesn't lie on that line, the one bad apple included in the list, it makes all of them bad. So I know that D and C are on the same line. But because G isn't, that makes the whole combination bad. Very similar thing with coplanar, except for we're going to be lying on a plane instead of on a line. And I could have points P, Q, S, and then O. So if I'm coplanar, I must lie on the same, let's throw another one in here, on the same plane. So that would be my P, Q, S, and T, because they are trapped within the same plane. They're all in this box, so to speak. If I want to be non-coplanar, that's just one that's not on the same plane. And again, it's going to take one bad apple to ruin the bunch. So in my list, the only thing I need to do is I need to include that O in my list. So we can list them all again, and then just throw the O in there. Notice how there's commas, because this is a list, guys. Or I could just do P, Q, S, O. They will specify how many they want you to identify. A line segment. A line segment is a measurable part of a line consisting of two endpoints. The two endpoints part is extremely important. That means it starts and stops. So if you remember, a line goes on indefinitely in both directions. A line segment does not, because we can actually measure it. So there's endpoints on them, not arrows. Those endpoints will be named. Same thing, we need 2 points, capital letters, but the symbol changes this time. It's just a bar over top. It's not going to have the arrows because it doesn't go on indefinitely in both directions. A segment bisector is going to be, a segment bisector is a segment, line, or plane that intersects a segment at its midpoint. So first we need to cover what bisector means. Bisector means to cut in half. You don't walk into Subway and say, please bisect my sandwich for me. But you do ask them to cut it in half. So what they're doing is they're bisecting it when they do that, but our modern day language means to cut in half. Make sure you store that away. It's cutting in half at its midpoint. Well, its midpoint has to be in the middle. And the way we'll know that it's in the middle is there'll be these things called tick marks. If you have the same amount of tick marks, that means you're equal. So in this case, we'd be in the middle. So here we have AM going to be equal to MB based on those tick marks. And that line is traveling through point M, cutting it in half. Basically, make sure you know that bisector means to cut in half. And our final term is array. Array is a line that extends indefinitely in only one direction. We've had two, but we've never had one direction. And so what this will do is they'll tell you what the endpoint is, P, and let's say it travels through Q. To name it, you need to start at the endpoint and go to the arrow. So if I start at the endpoint, that's P, travel through the arrow, I see Q, and then my symbol on top is an arrow. You can never travel the opposite direction, so you need to make sure that arrow is going the right way. If they switched it on you and it goes like this, and say this endpoint is B, and this goes through A, you still start at the endpoint, which is B, travel through A, and it's array. We don't get to go the opposite direction just because we might see A first, looking at it from right to left. You don't see this on your notes, I don't think, but at least write it down someplace. So you might want to pause it once it's filled in. Two intersecting lines always intersect at a point. So my two intersecting lines are R and S, and they hit at this single point P. Two planes, in this case it's L and M, those always intersect at a line. And if you see, the line is line K. Now it's getting pretty long, so what I want you guys to try to do is I want you to try to complete page 2 of your notes to the best of your ability on your own. Please bring any questions to class meeting tomorrow and answer the questions at the end of this video.